Atlanta is one of the fastest growing regions in the country, adding more than 60,000 new residents a year. So clearly, a whole lot of people think this is a really good place to be. The question is, are they right? Well, yes and no, because Atlanta has so much going for it. Jobs, culture, lifestyle, amenities, and more value than a lot of the other metros that people compare it to. But it also comes with some very real trade-offs that can wear on you pretty quickly if you're not prepared for them. So today I'm breaking down the pros and cons of living in Atlanta, Georgia, so you can decide if this is actually the right fit for you. Hey, my name's Joel. I'm a local realtor here in Metro Atlanta. I help people relocate here all the time. Let's get into it. One of the biggest reasons people keep moving to Atlanta is pretty simple: opportunity. This is one of the biggest economic hubs in the Southeast, and the economy here is broad enough that a lot of different kinds of people can make it work. You've got logistics, healthcare, tech, finance, film, supply chain, advanced manufacturing, and a deep corporate presence, all feeding into the same metro. That's great because it means Atlanta is not dependent on one industry to keep it going. And the labor market is strong too. Georgia labor data showed Metro Atlanta at a 3.2% unemployment rate in May of 2026, with the labor force at an all-time high. It also helps that so many major employers all call this region home. Companies like Delta, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, UPS, NCR all have a major presence here with either regional or national headquarters, which gives the metro a level of economic gravity that a lot of cities would love to have. So if you're relocating for work or just want to be in a place where there are lots of different paths that you can take, Atlanta makes a lot of sense. But Atlanta is not just a place people move to because they want to work here. It is also a place people move to because it actually has a lot of life to it once you are off the clock. Atlanta does not feel generic. It has a real identity, and that is one of the biggest reasons people end up liking it here more than they expected. This is a city with real cultural weight behind it too, from the civil rights movement to becoming one of the country's biggest music capitals, and you can still feel that in the city today. Start with the food. Atlanta is not just a city with a few good restaurants. It has become a real food city. Wallet Hub ranked Atlanta number 11 among foodie cities in America in 2026, and Michelin now has a real footprint here too. If you want something upscale, there are places like Bacchanalia or Miller Union. If you want something that feels, maybe more distinctly Atlanta, Buford Highway is probably the best example of the city's diversity showing up in real life, with one of the best international food corridors anywhere in the metro. Then there's music. Atlanta has been one of the most influential music cities in the country for a long time now, especially in hip hop and R&B. You're talking about a city that helped produce names like Outkast, Usher, TLC, Ray Charles, Ludacris. And for you youngsters here, those are musical acts, very famous, great musical acts. And if you actually like going to hear live music, Atlanta is a great city for that too. You've got iconic venues like the Fox Theater, the Tabernacle, the Variety Playhouse. Then on the bigger end, you've got places like Amerisbank Theater and Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which means Atlanta is regularly a stop for any major tours instead of, maybe being one of those cities that artists are just gonna skip over. And then there's sports. Atlanta is one of the few cities in the country with teams across the major leagues, including Atlanta United in the MLS. And this city is constantly hosting major sporting events: SEC Championship, Peach Bowl, college football, playoff games, Final Four, Super Bowls, and now the FIFA World Cup. There's always something happening, and that absolutely adds to the appeal of living here. Did you have a World Cup game, Chicago? Orlando? No, I didn't think so. So Atlanta is not just practical, it has flavor, it has identity, and it feels like a place with a real pulse. And one of the best parts is that Atlanta does not force everybody into the same kind of lifestyle. This is one of Atlanta's biggest strengths. There is not just one version of life here. If you want the more urban, walkable, high-rise version of Atlanta, that is where places like Midtown, with some of the strongest walkability you're going to find anywhere in the metro. If you want more of the luxury high-rise version of Atlanta, that's where Buckhead tends to come into the conversation, along with its upscale shopping and more polished city living. If you want something trendier and more neighborhood driven, then Old Fourth Ward and the Beltline corridor are some really great examples of this. That is where you can get the more walkable, restaurant heavy, people outside all the time version of Atlanta. And once you get outside the city, the options only widen from there. There are more polished suburbs like Alpharetta, more outdoorsy suburbs like Canton, Woodstock, and Ackworth, or maybe some more established suburbs like Smyrna, Marietta, and Kennesaw. That is what makes Atlanta work for so many people. It's not really one lifestyle, it's a collection of very different lifestyle options spread across one very large metro. And on top of all of that, Atlanta also has one advantage that almost nobody argues with. Quick pause, if you're trying to figure out which of these suburbs actually is gonna fit you best, then that's what I do. I help people relocate here into Metro Atlanta all the time. My contact info is down in the description. You'll also see it right here on the screen. Reach out anytime, feel free to ask me any questions. Hartsfield-Jackson is one of Atlanta's biggest superpowers, and this is not just a nice to have kind of thing. ATL is still the world's busiest airport and was the first in history to serve more than 100 million passengers in a single year. It also estimates about $66 billion in annual direct economic impact in Georgia. So this is not just a travel convenience, it is one of the biggest engines of the entire region. If you travel for work, it matters. If you have family around the country, it matters. If you like the idea of being able to get almost anywhere in the world without too much drama, it matters. Hartsfield is within a 2-hour flight of 80% of the US, and the airport serves 160 plus domestic and 80 plus international destinations. And once you put the jobs, the culture, the lifestyle options, and the airport together, that is where Atlanta starts to make a really strong value argument. This is probably the biggest reason Atlanta keeps making sense to people. No, Atlanta is not one of the cheapest cities to buy into, but for what you get, the value is really strong. The number that really stands out is this. Metro Atlanta's median list price was $429,000 in June 2026, while the national median list price was $430,000 the same month. So you are basically sitting right around the national housing average while living in one of the biggest metros in the country. That is a very compelling value story. And what are you getting for that? A major job market, big sports, big events, serious food scene, global airport, and a lot of different neighborhoods and suburbs to choose from. That is a lot of city for the money compared to places like New York, DC, LA, Boston, or Miami. That does not mean every part of Atlanta feels affordable. It does mean the amenity to price ratio is still one of the city's biggest selling points. And there is one more quality of life advantage here that people do not always think about until they have lived somewhere else. This one is quieter, but it matters. Atlanta does not really have a lot of risk when it comes to national disasters. Now, Atlanta is not disaster-free. Georgia still gets severe storms and a tornado watch from time to time. But compared to a lot of other major metros, Atlanta avoids some of the worst recurring disaster patterns. You are not living with regular hurricane exposure the way many Florida metros do. You are not living with earthquake risk like California. You are not dealing with deep winter snow burden the way a lot of the Northeast and Midwest do. So no, it is not risk-free, but the overall recurring disaster profile is still much milder than what a lot of other major metros have to deal with. And from a quality of life standpoint and an insurance standpoint, that really does matter. Now, that said, Atlanta absolutely has its downsides too, and the biggest one is probably not going to surprise you. Bad traffic in Atlanta is kind of a trope at this point, but it is real. Atlanta is a very car-dependent metro, and you feel that constantly. The region is spread out, and that changes daily life more than a lot of relocators expect. Distances that do not look terrible on the map can take way longer than they should in real life, and commute times can wear people down fast if they do not think carefully about where they live versus where they work. And the public transit story does not fully solve that, or really solve it at all. MARTA is definitely useful in certain locations. Over 7.5 million riders used MARTA in just April of 2026. But compared to other major metros, Atlanta is still much more car dependent and fragmented than you would want it to be. So if you are coming from somewhere denser, more compact, or more transit oriented, this is one of Atlanta's hardest adjustments. This is the reality check section. Atlanta still offers good value relative to other major metros, but that does not mean it feels cheap on the ground. Housing has risen a lot. Insurance can still surprise people. Certain in-town neighborhoods are very expensive, and one of the weirdest parts of Atlanta right now is that the old just move farther out, it will get way cheaper logic is not as reliable as people think. The Wall Street Journal reported that in late 2025, some of Atlanta's outer suburbs were only about $4,000 cheaper than the core and closer in suburbs, which is a much smaller gap than most buyers would expect. That's why Atlanta can feel a little bit backwards sometimes. You can still find better values in certain pockets, but the metro does not always behave the way people expect it to. And then there is one more quality of life issue that pretty much everybody moving here ends up talking about sooner or later. Atlanta may not deal with a lot of natural disasters, but we make up for it in heat and pollen and bugs. If you love being outside, spring and fall here are fantastic. Usually short, but fantastic. But the flip side is that parts of the year feel very southern in the least glamorous way possible. Hot, sticky summers, cars literally covered in pollen, mosquitoes, palmetto bugs, the whole deal. It's not enough to ruin the city for most people, but it absolutely is part of the experience here. So that is the trade-off with Atlanta. It offers some real opportunity, real personality, a lot of lifestyle flexibility, and a real value that's better than a lot of other cities that one would compare it to. But the price is the traffic, the sprawl, sometimes the cost of living that can be more complicated than people expect, and some very real southern climate annoyances. If you are trying to figure out whether Atlanta or anywhere in the metro is the right fit for you, reach out anytime. This is what I do. I help people relocate here, and I'd be happy to help you narrow it down as well. If you're still just in research mode, check out some more videos. I'll see you in the next one.